All right, what's up, everybody? Scott and Nate back here with Are We Friends? I believe this is episode number 8, so hard to believe. Probably need to get some more in, but we'll get to that point. But it's the holiday season for you. But so what's up, Nate? What you been up to this week? Traveling?
No, this is one of the weeks I'm here at the house. Well, here in Kansas City, anyways. Uh, there's a training that they're doing remote at work that I haven't participated in a few years, and I thought I ought to get in and participate before somebody calls me up and says, "Why the hell haven't you been in this?" So
Nice, especially being a
yeah,
safety guy.
yeah. Well, I used to be. I don't do that
Well,
anymore.
true. That's right. Yeah, thankfully things for me have starting to calm down a little bit. This is last week of students here, and finals are done with by Friday, and then we got our holiday party for faculty and staff Friday night that we usually go to, and it's actually one of the better holiday parties I've been to, which is good. It's kind of tapered back a little bit through the years, but not like it was when I was here way back the first time, but
Yeah,
still pretty good. Kindling lights going, so we'll go to
yeah.
that, have a good time,
That
eat some
reminds me.
food.
We've got our party Friday night downtown at I can't remember what the name of the hotel is, but somewhere downtown. I know
Nice.
Allison is excited about it. This is the first one that the group I support in Kansas City, first one they've had in KC since um, just before COVID.
Oh wow,
So
where are they usually
the
at? Like Omaha or something?
I mean, like the district I support that's in Denver. They had one last year I went to, and actually they have one again, but it's also Friday night.
Oh,
So
yeah.
the two things I support are at the same time. So I'll just stay here in KC and go to the one. But I don't know why they haven't done anything up until now since COVID. But it used to be when I very first started with the company, we used to do them at the Overland Park Convention Center,
Oh yeah,
and
nice place.
man, it was like
Yeah,
all it just the scale of it, everything. It was just it was amazing. So
yeah.
we don't they don't do it there anymore. They moved to downtown. Last one they had was at the Nelson Atkins Art Museum. That was kind of
Mhm.
cool, except the museum was probably only like 20% open
Yeah, don't want
for
to damage
people at the
everything.
party. So it's not like you could, which
Yeah,
is probably smart. You don't want
yeah.
a bunch of drunk people
Alcohol.
walking around, but touching the artwork and stuff. And
Yep.
so,
Yeah. Cool. Hard to believe it's that time of year, but
I
speaking
know.
of that, it's getting to the end of college football season, so figured we'd talk about some of that tonight, and just the college football season in general, college football playoff, the transfer portal, and conference championship games, the ACC situation, and Heisman in the bowl games coming up. So, but yeah, so I guess let's start off. You had the conference championship games this last weekend. Just kind of why don't you start out with your take on some of them, and I'll kind of get into mine a little bit. I guess we could start with the
Yeah.
Big 12.
Well, I purposefully didn't watch any of it,
Same.
and there's a couple different reasons. When Florida State plays Louisville for the ACC, I just don't have a rooting interest in that. And so if
Yep.
I just happen to not be, unless I happen to be sitting on the couch looking for something to watch while that's on, I'm just not going to go look for it. The SEC, I just can't bring myself to watch SEC unless by chance there's some sort of like very specific personal reason. So Georgia, Alabama, I just can't watch. Don't want to. The corruption of college football really begins with
Yeah.
all the, you know, arbitrary love that was thrown the SEC's way 15 years ago, and you
Yep.
know, it's just is what it is. Big Ten, ugh, Iowa is just
They got
that's
destroyed.
like prisoners in Guantanamo Bay. They're like, hey, do you want to be waterboarded or do you want to watch Iowa football? And they're all choosing the waterboarding. That's just bad football. And then Michigan is, everything going on there.
Mhm.
Not a lot of desire. So
I feel like,
Texas, Oklahoma State, I it was the
yeah,
most predictable blowout I think of the entire season. So
yep.
long story short, didn't watch hardly any of it.
Oh, and I'm not even that excited for the college football playoff. Not necessarily because I don't like XY team, whatever, but personally, kind of like most people, I wanted Florida State to get in there. You're 13-0 team. I get people's points of, well, it's the most deserving, not the undefeated teams that get in. Well, my opinion, from my experience in college athletics and sports in general, if you go undefeated in most leagues, especially a Power Five conference, you probably deserve to be in there.
Yeah,
And then you have back to the SEC. Now you got, technically, with Texas leaving the Big 12 going to the SEC, you got two SEC schools essentially in there. So,
I don't know about that.
but
I don't know what the rules are, but somebody was saying, I saw online somewhere that if Texas were to win the whole thing, all the money
it
that
might
they
go to
would get
them.
from that goes to the conference.
Yep, you might
Now,
be right.
I'm sure there's a way that that's divided up, and Texas probably gets a
Oh,
piece of it. But
I'm sure
at this
SEC
point,
will throw them some money too.
yeah, at this point, for the first time in my life, I'm rooting for Texas.
So we'll see what happens, and who knows what it actually is as far as that goes. But I hope you're right. It goes back into
Uh,
the Big 12. But yeah, I don't. I mean, I don't know really who I want to win, to be honest with you. Kind of wish it was some. I had a personal connection to Florida State. Worked with some coaches that are there, or one in particular. Think he's done a great job. He was a good coach here, good person, Coach Burnham. But I feel bad for that coach. All those coaches, those players, they work their tail off. You're told to, work your tail off like that. You go undefeated, you should be all right. And then you've
yeah.
got two one-loss teams. Back to Texas, a one-loss team. Granted, they beat Alabama, but they lost to a two-loss Oklahoma team. So
Yeah.
what's the argument there? Granted, they're probably playing a little bit better now, but they also had some close games in there too. They should have almost lost to Kansas State, almost lost a few couple other close games too. So
Well, and that kind of plays into people talking about, oh, the eye test, and
yeah,
we think that this team is better than the others and that kind of stuff. And does the Big 12 seem like it's as strong as it was last year?
I don't know.
I mean,
Yeah,
Oklahoma State lost to South Alabama.
right.
They lost big. They lost big to UCF, and they lost big to Texas. Now, losing big to Texas is nothing shameful about that. K State looked, haphazardly.
Right.
KU is a good program, or they're a better program than they were, but I'm
Yep.
still not thinking that they're great. Is anybody really that big of a believer in Oklahoma? They didn't get
Nope.
a New Year's Six bowl, and that's with the name Oklahoma. So I don't think anybody's that high on the Big 12 this year. So
No. No,
Texas being the
and
Big 12 champ, I mean, they earned it, but
right. And
this is just
rightfully
not a
so. I mean,
great year.
we're we're big, obviously Big 12 guys, but he also had to face reality too. Yeah, Big 12 is definitely isn't strong. Now, who's to say they can't go into these bowl games and pull out some victories? But at
Yeah,
that point, does it really matter? Especially kind of one of our other topics of conversation with the transfer portal. I mean, heck, you don't even know who's going to be playing in these games next
yeah,
week. K State's going to be down to what, a true freshman quarterback. We've had 12 people in the transfer portal, maybe a couple more to come before the deadline, and then same thing with some of these other big schools. What Ohio State's
their starting
quarterback,
quarterback is in the portal.
yeah. So
That's a really interesting one to me.
yep,
Because why does somebody, to me, I was thinking about that. Why does somebody go into the portal? Probably because they're not playing and they want to be,
right,
or they think that there's an opportunity for them to make some money.
right,
And, maybe there's like a third kind of miscellaneous. I'm from Southern California and I'm all the way in
right,
Iowa, and I just don't want to be here anymore.
Right.
So there could be some of that. I don't know where that guy for Ohio State's from, but he's already starting on one of the top
Best.
blue blood programs. So
Right.
is he just not getting paid enough? And he thinks
Right.
he
We
can
were
go from 1.2 to 1.3 million dollars. I mean, I guess if somebody was going to offer me an extra 100 grand, I would
right.
take
We
it.
were kind of talking about that at work. Like, is he getting forced out by the coach, or is he just wanting to leave because he doesn't like
Yeah,
it? Or you kind of look at a different situation. Obviously, we like to refer back to our alma mater, but you look at Kansas State with Will Howard.
yeah,
Ended up having a great career. I think he's a class act, really good kid. Obviously, Coach Lyman loved him too, but he had his moments where he was great, especially last year, and had his moments where he wasn't as great this year, and then some other,
mhm,
great moments here and there. But I think, in my personal opinion, with his situation, he sees, okay, you got this true freshman. I love K State. I love the program, but in the long run, what's probably best for it and what's best for me? Because as much as we love our school and our alma mater, he could probably go somewhere right now, make a crap
yeah,
in NIL money in the millions. As I was watching on another podcast, his bank account's probably about to skyrocket by leaving K State. So can you blame the kid? No.
yeah,
Are there people excited to see Avery start? Yeah. So it'll be an interesting situation. I'm actually looking forward, not just because it's K State, watch that bowl game just to see how he does as a true freshman starting. And there's going to be a lot of other new kids starting,
yeah,
and not just that game, but all the others too. I mean, back to this whole college football playoff ACC situation, but you look at Georgia and Florida State right now. Who's going to stick around with those programs, and how down are they still going to be? Is it going to be a good game? Is Georgia going to blow up Florida State, or is Florida State going to hang in there and pull it out? What's going to happen, especially if they're still down in their third string quarterback, which sounds like their second string will be back. But yeah, it's other than the top four, it's going to be interesting because you don't see a lot of those guys leaving right now. So I think Kleiman does good in the transfer portal. Has done pretty decent last few years. So, we'll get some guys too, but there's also some positions we got to recruit.
yeah,
But
yeah. I mean, I go back and forth on the portal and how how good versus how bad is it?
right.
In some regards, and I know more about the situation with Will Howard and K State. His playing time next year is not guaranteed. He's had a lot of people clamoring for Avery Johnson to play.
Yep.
So there's kind of a chance that he could stick around and just not play, and that's not obviously what he wants to do. But
Right.
it's also a situation where I think he's definitely trying to get to the NFL, and even if there wasn't a hot shot uh, freshman behind him, would he be contemplating, do I move on from K State and try to go, and if the opportunity arises to somewhere, and I'm just going to make it up, as USC, even though I
Yeah.
think Lincoln Riley's overall a terrible coach, but I think he's a really good quarterback coach.
Yeah.
Uh, you go somewhere like that where they've won, coach has had three Heisman Trophy winners in his like 7 years of being a head coach.
A Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah, is that what's
Yeah.
needed to get that next little bit from where he's at to the NFL. So there's just lots of things going on with the portal. I think there's definitely some good that's coming out of it, but there's definitely some bad. And I think another point is, in the day when transferring was a lot more difficult, you got a guy who's maybe kind of a tweener on your depth chart, and he might play 15% of snaps over the course of a season, which is significantly less than a guy probably wants to play, but it's definitely more than there's some other guys that are going to be on your team for 5 years and they're never going to step foot on the field.
Right.
So I think the portal kind of gives an opportunity for the coaches to tell those guys, hey, you don't have as much of an opportunity here. You might need to look at the portal and see if
Right,
you can go from, a Big 12 school to a Sun Belt school
right.
or to
And
whatever.
I
Go
think
play college football.
right. I think that's where it is good. And I think the players do need to have options because if you obviously I work in higher education and you look at these, okay, you take the athletics aspect out of it. If you're a normal student, you're in class, but you don't like the school, you're allowed to transfer too, you know.
Yeah.
So why should they be tied just because they play a sport? Now, where a lot of people go back and forth with is are these kids leaving because there's more money X place, which some are. But back to your point, some are just going so they can go play somewhere else, whether it's a school at the same level or even here we've had several people transfer down that have ended up doing well, so yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's where it's good, but um, you know, I think it's good these kids can earn money, but where's the cap on it? What how does where does it stop if it needs to?
Right.
Not saying it needs to, but I like when we were in college back then, players couldn't even if you're on scholarship, you couldn't even really work a job or make much money, and these kids would
Right.
struggle going to practice every day. Granted, they're getting a full ride, or not everybody, but some of them, getting a full ride, but that's not going to still pay for your meals, your car insurance, your car payment, your all your apartment, or if they're living in the dorm, granted, that's probably paid for.
Right.
But you get what I'm saying. Like it couldn't work back in the day, so I think that's where NIL comes in and is good. But when you got a kid that's a senior in high school, hasn't played it down in college football yet, making millions, that's a little ridiculous.
Right.
Where
Well,
where's that line?
yeah, I think another point to consider is what makes a college football team successful. Is it, you know, the guys that are getting paid the most? Maybe. I mean, there's that implies that you've got the most talent if you have a lot of guys that are cashing in like that. But I don't know that you're building much of a culture. Yeah, and I
Right,
think Texas is a great example because they've had the most talented roster for years and years and years, and they haven't done hardly anything with it. They won a national championship almost 20 years ago, and since then they've barely done anything. They won the conference championship
right,
15 years ago, and now it's they finally have done it again, but they've had all that talent, but they don't have
right,
the right culture. And I think if you're a program that's going to rely on having a bunch of NIL money available and try to go out and get a guy here and a guy there, I think you're missing out on building a culture and having a real program and a real team with that cohesiveness. I think that's what's really neat. So there's kind of a balance of,
yep,
do we go out and just spend money like crazy and have a bunch of free agents who have no real ties to us, or do we not spend any money and try to get everybody who grew up as a Northwestern fan or a New Mexico State fan to get them to just for the love of the university come here?
right.
I think it's somewhere in the middle.
I think so too, and I think those are going to be the programs that are going to do better in the long run. Yeah, you might have some of those, like you said, that are going after the quote free agents that are going to have your ones and twos years. Oh, they might, win a couple national championships or conference championships here, but what's it going to be like long term? And we could be wrong, who knows, but we could be right. But I think K-State's definitely probably one of the K-State, KU's, a lot of the Big 12 schools right now are kind of those programs that probably need to find that balance of what you were just talking about. But you know, the reality is somebody going to K-State's not going to make as much money as somebody going to LSU or Alabama or Texas. It just sucks. It is what it is, but you never know. They
Yeah.
could get that one deal too, so
What's interesting about that, they had the big basketball recruit come visit
mhm.
a little over a month ago. Patrick, I don't know how you say his last name, so I'm not going to try. Um, and it was down between K-State, Duke, and I think Kentucky. I can't remember if it was Kentucky. And he chose Duke. And the reports were that the NIL money was bigger had he chosen K-State.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I think he had other reasons to choose Duke, and that's fine.
Yeah,
Go to the
Duke's a good
yeah, go,
program.
yeah. I can't fault anybody for
No,
choosing to go play basketball at Duke.
no, and
It's like
matter of fact, somebody
home
was
run
talking about
education, home run education, and a home run athletic
program.
program. So
Yeah, somebody was talking about that I was with last night. How, granted, Coach K's not there anymore, but he wouldn't when he was interviewing kids, he to go to their program, he wouldn't just recruit them for basketball. He would kind of recruited them as person. Matter of fact, I don't know if it's in his books or whatever he's told in a speech, but he would sit down and interview the kids in front of their parents, and if they act if if they didn't treat their parents with respect, he basically wouldn't sign the kid because it shows their character. And I mean, he had
mhm.
pretty good success, and I think that goes kind of back to what you're saying. Duke's got the history there. So yeah, why did he actually sign with Duke basketball
Right.
with other schools? And he could still be getting NIL money there. You never know,
I'm
So
sure he is.
yeah, it's Duke.
I guarantee he's a 5-star basketball prospect at Duke. I guarantee he's getting paid.
Well, if Duke people aren't throwing it, you can probably have a big name company throwing it at you, which is
Yeah.
what you used to have. And I don't think anybody knows the right answer for any of that. I don't think it's gonna calm down anytime soon. I think
No,
we're gonna have to live with that in the transfer portal.
yeah, and I agree with you. I don't want to. I don't want to say they should cap what somebody can make because
Right,
that's just not right. Um, but I think there needs to be some better rules because
right,
the NCAA, which is just absolutely shit the bed for the last several years, just time after time after time, they're just hapless and they have just done a terrible job of doing anything. Uh,
right. I think a
But
good example. Go ahead.
the portal just kind of was like, hey, we've been talking about this for years. We're not going to do anything, but we're going to say on July 1st, NIL is totally open and the portal is good to go. So there's no rules. What are you doing? You
Yeah.
know, it just they
Well,
need to have something, and I have no
yeah.
idea what this new thing that somebody put out today. Have you seen this?
Mm-mm.
The Who was it? Oh, the NCAA commissioner or president or chairman or whoever, he put out, or president, I think is his title, that they should have a new subdivision of college athletics for basically the richest programs where they have like a minimum of something like $30,000 a year that they pay to at least half of the student athletes
Wow.
through their NIL. It's like, what?
That's crazy. Well, and I think back to your point too, like, yeah, where's the balance? Where's the yeah, I don't know what the right word is, but I mean, you look at Utah, every one of their players was given a truck this year. And then at what
Right,
point do are they all taxed on that? They have to supposedly they're all leased and they got to turn back in when they graduate. But I mean,
right.
that's absolutely absurd. Like, it blows my mind. And yeah, I mean, I, I I couldn't believe that when I heard it. Like, and I'm sure they're going to get taxed on that stuff or something. Who knows? But
Well, I would say the other issue is how many 18 or 19-year-olds do you know that are diligent with uh, their money and are capable of meeting their tax obligations,
right. Well,
and some of that other stuff. And if you're getting, one a truck, I'm sure there's some mileage and some other things that you have to track. You're getting paid cash for some sort of endorsement. Do you have an accountant that's helping
right,
you make sure that you're doing things right? Who's going to be the first athlete we hear of who's filing bankruptcy because
right,
they hired some some questionable accountant who stole everything they've got?
right, right. And I think back
The
to your point, whether you're a Dion fan or not, he kind of said this, I think, when he was Jackson State along some of these lines. He's like, I've got these kids coming out of high school they're making more money than my coaches, but I got to hire an extra coach just to kind of help them keep track of their finances and
Right.
keep track of everything, and I'm sure other programs have had to do the same, but yeah, where's the balance? Where's the um or not organization of it, but yeah, we're not, like you said, not necessarily a cap, but where's that balance at? Um, do you cap the teams instead of the players, or do you even do that? What other rules do you put in place? And I
Yeah.
do think one good thing with the transfer portal is it's not like they can declare any time of year. There's a certain time frame. So
Yeah.
after that time frame, you can't declare anymore, and then I think too, it's if you're not a grad transfer, if you transfer from one D1 to another, you still have to sit out a year. So
You can transfer once
okay, maybe it's the second time you gotta sit out a year or something.
unless you're a graduate transfer. So I think if you do that, you could transfer 2 times without having to sit out. But
Huh.
one of them would have to be as a grad transfer.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought. I thought I
And
heard
I
that.
don't I don't understand the situation around K-State's. Uh, I guess he'd be the number 2 quarterback right now. It sounds like they think they're going to have him available, but he was a scholarship player at Minnesota, and he transferred to K-State this year with an academic scholarship. So there was some sort of rule, which I've never read, but they were saying that if he played this year, it was, or maybe he wasn't eligible to play at all this year.
Hmm.
And so I think it sounds like they're applying for some kind of a waiver for just the bowl game, that he could be the
Hmm.
emergency quarterback, because
Yeah.
it's Avery Johnson and this guy Jacob. I don't know if it's Knuth or Nuth,
Hmm.
but those are the only 2 guys they have on the roster.
Yeah. Unless somebody transfer comes in real quick.
Yeah,
But I doubt that's gonna happen.
yeah,
So, but no, yeah, it's gonna be interesting the next 5-10 years, see how this all evolves, and I think managing is probably the word I'm looking at, between amount balance and managing the whole thing but kind of back, I meant to say this earlier, back to one of your points, just throwing money at players rather than building a culture. I think a good example of that, and it could change with their new coach who has done well, but Texas A&M, the amount of money they put in their
yeah,
NIL is ridiculous. And look at what they've done the last few years. Not much at all. Now they've got
yeah.
a new coach, the new coach coming from Duke. Granted, he used to coach at A&M back in the day, but so it could change there. But and I like that coach, but yeah, that's a program that's thrown a lot of NIL, and it didn't really help them the last few years.
Yeah.
So
I saw a tweet some A&M guy had today that uh, he was claiming that when they were in the Big 12, they dominated.
yeah, they did. I mean, as much as I hate to say it, they beat us in '98 when we should have
Well, that
gone to
was
the
it.
national championship. Yeah,
I mean, they
but
they definitely did not dominate the
nope.
Big 12.
Right.
And,
Well, they were better than they've done
I
in the
mean, I remember they
SEC.
had some like really lean years too, though,
Yeah,
where they were an embarrassment, and then they had some good years in between. And
right.
I would say they were a middle of the road team, and when they left the Big 12, I don't know that affected the Big 12 all that much.
No, that was a cool place though. I remember traveling there and being on Kyle Field. That was
Really?
pretty awesome. Yeah, we lost that game. That's when what Beasley, or I think it was Beasley, was at quarterback, but it wasn't his fault. We lost the game. We just got beat, but it was a cool place. I remember being up in the press box, setting up the headsets, and you could see for miles. And it's actually a cool college town too. In general, I don't mind A&M, but and I would go back there and see a game in a heartbeat. But yeah, that's a program that been looks like it's been throwing some money around, but it hasn't helped them. But cool. So I guess what do we got? What's the other topic? Heisman.
Yeah, Heisman.
Yeah, what's your thoughts there?
I mean, I would say, in this is just for my own life. the Heisman used to be something like to look forward to.
Oh yeah.
And maybe some of that was because in the 90s, the late 90s, especially in the early 2000s, our program was at a little bit different stature. And
Right.
so, Bishop went to New York, was runner up. Sproles, had we had a real campaign for him, probably would have gone to New York. Instead, finished as the number 5 in the voting. So he just missed out. Colin Klein went to New York, I can't remember if he was in second or third. I think he was in third place. Um,
That was the
but
whole Mate Teo year. That
yeah,
what a joke there.
yeah. But the Heisman has just become this such an uninspired thing.
Yep.
Like, yeah, we're just going to give it to the quarterback on the number 1 team.
I want to see alignment.
And I know this year that mold doesn't fit because it's Penix from Washington who's in the playoffs, Bo Nix from Oregon who I think was in the running and they just missed out. Um, Marvin Harrison Jr. from Ohio State and
Jaden Daniels.
Jaden Daniels from LSU, which I haven't really seen much of any of them, to be honest with you. But the highlights I've seen, I mean, they're all fine guys, but are they really the most valuable player in all of college football?
Right.
And you can make an argument that the quarterback for Florida State should automatically win the Heisman because
Right.
his injury,
Right. Kept them out of the
yeah,
college
that
football
was
playoff.
that was the only reason to remove Florida State.
Right.
Whereas one of the other guys,
Just
who
a bunch
knows?
of
I
crap.
mean, that hasn't happened to those other guys, so you can't really say. And
Yep.
the whole thing is it's just become who cares? I couldn't even tell you who won the Heisman last year.
No, I honestly don't remember either, but if I had to choose one of them, I'm kind of like you. I don't really know who to choose.
I'm gonna go for uh Penix from Washington.
Yeah, I think I would either choose him or Bo Nix. I mean, I don't know. I don't know the numbers. I don't know how often this happens, but you don't see a lot of Heisman winners. You see finalists, but not Heisman winners that either lose a championship game or lose a college football playoff game. Well, I guess you have the college football playoff after the Heisman, but a conference championship game or last game of the season that go on and still win the Heisman over somebody that has won those that's in the running. And my point of that is I think Penix probably has the edge over all of them because of that. I would, if you take that out of the picture, I personally like Bo Nix, but I think it'll be one of those two personally. So
Although, as I sit here, the more I think about the wide receiver, Marvin Harrison Jr.,
yeah,
just because he's positionally not favored, because
right,
it was always running backs, and now it's always been quarterbacks for the last
right,
X number of years. Let's give it to a wide receiver. I'd really like to see some more thought go into it. Be like,
right.
like
Why
the
can't
who's
somebody that wins the Outland Trophy be there? Like the best lineman
yeah,
in the country.
yeah, or is it Travis Hunter? Is that the guy,
Yeah,
the two-way player at Colorado?
yeah,
Yeah, I haven't seen a whole lot of him play, but I know he's pretty good, and
yeah,
He's been playing both ways.
right.
Now, did he get hurt?
Yeah,
I think
he
he
got
missed some
hurt, but he
time.
he came back, I think, and
I
then
mean,
but he was a
that
pretty valuable player to their
yeah,
team.
yeah. So I just everything about college football is just getting worse.
Yeah, as much as I love college football, I
I don't
will.
know.
I'll say it's become, not that it hasn't always been a business, but it's really become a business now, and it's not. It's funny because after the whole college football playoff situation this weekend, us working in higher education and talking about this on Monday, it hasn't the thing that's going around that goes around higher education and even athletics and NIL and stuff like that is okay. You got to think of the athletes. You got to think of the athletes. You got to think of the students. You got to think of the students. Well, that's clearly shown that all that has gotten thrown out of the wind, out of the way from worrying about the athletes too or their mental health. It's like, okay, if you're doing that, think about the kids at Florida State that put in all this hard work, went undefeated like they're supposed to, and then they get the shaft.
Right.
And like I said, I know people say it's not the most deserving, but the four best. But I think there's a pretty damn good argument there.
Well, but even that is flawed because who's to say that those are the four best?
Right.
Just because however many
Because
people
a
pick them.
quarterback got injured, even though they came
Well,
back and won the conference championship game with their third string true freshman quarterback, that's
yeah,
pretty
who's
good.
I don't know. But how do you know that if you took out one of those four teams and put in Ohio State,
Right.
that Ohio State wouldn't win a
Right.
14 playoff? Or you keep Georgia in instead of one of the four, and then
Or
Georgia would, you know what I mean? There's just
how about
you could put Tulane in. Maybe Tulane is good enough for two games to beat whoever they match
uh,
up.
another good example is you look at Liberty. Liberty's 13-0. Do I think they would probably maybe win against any of these teams? Probably not, but they're going to play Oregon. I hope they give Oregon a run for their money and prove that these smaller schools can do it. But to kind of prove your point, they're 13-0. Why don't they have a shot next year? They might have more of a shot because you got 12 teams in there. But yeah,
Just
you're right. Like who's to say that Ohio State, who's still a pretty damn good team, and even some of these other teams that are in the top 10 couldn't come in there and upset well, Michigan and Alabama, Texas,
yeah.
or Washington.
Well, and don't even get me started. Well, I'm just going to get into it. Excuse me. I don't understand how the SEC hasn't been penalized for years due to the fact that they only play 8 conference games.
Yep.
And the fourth of their non-con games come the second to the last week in almost the entire conference. There's some of them that week play each other, but most of them, Alabama played Chattanooga
Second
like
to last game of the season.
17 days ago.
Right.
They murdered Chattanooga. And then they played Auburn, who's not really very good. And it was
should have lost.
close.
And they should have lost to Auburn.
Yeah. And then they played Georgia. And granted, Georgia hadn't lost in a couple of years, but Georgia didn't look like they were anywhere near as good as they were 2 years ago or last year. There's definitely, you can't maintain that forever. So how can you tell me that Alabama, who had to go through an SEC conference, which wasn't that good this year, it had a losing record in non-conference games against Power 5 opponents.
Right.
So the SEC wasn't that good. They only play each other 8 times instead of 9 like all the other conferences. And one of those non-conference games, they put it into November so that every team has a quick, easy gimme game right before the end so that whoever plays the big rival
rest up your players.
And then gets into the SEC championship, they're all fresh and whatever. I mean, it's just honestly, it's a master class by the SEC commissioner on how to manipulate the system.
Yep.
He should be running for office.
Good point. But yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of like you in the Heisman. I've lost a lot of interest in it. Honestly, I have way more interest in watching Army Navy than I do worrying about the Heisman. I could care.
I will tell you, I am definitely more interested to see the uniforms and the Army Navy game than I am to hear who wins the Heisman.
Have you heard what they are?
I saw a picture of them a couple days ago, and I can't remember exactly what they look like, but what I remember, the Army the Army uniform was better looking than the Navy. Man, Navy like 10 years ago had one that they came out with. boy, oh boy, was it a good looking
Yeah.
uniform. It was
I think they're
good.
I think they're both pretty cool, but yeah, I don't remember what the Army's was based off of, but Navy's based off of submarine this year. So their helmet was kind of painted like that, which is pretty cool. But yeah, and that's definitely a game that we will be going to one year.
We
So
should.
yes,
And
we'll do
Philly,
we'll do a podcast from there.
yeah,
Do a live or something.
yeah,
I would pay money to go to that game, even if it's
that would be
super
cool.
cold outside, just to support the services and just the history of that game and everything too. Just
Just
that's a bucket
yeah,
list.
yeah. That's a you know what would be another bucket list. This is we should make this a topic sometime in the off season, but I'll get into it
Yes.
now. A bucket list of games to go to.
Yep.
Like some people who are just big college football fans would want to go to Michigan, Ohio State
Notre Dame,
just to go.
USC.
You know, it would be an awesome game to go to. Harvard versus Yale,
Yep. Yep.
just
The
because.
original football teams,
Yeah,
which is crazy. Hard to believe,
right.
but yeah. Um, cool, man. Anything else you want to dive into before we get off of here?
Oh,
I think
good.
I think that yeah, I think that's pretty good covers,
Got an empty
some of
glass, so I'm done.
the there you go. And maybe next time we'll get into some since we're getting into the bowl season, maybe next week or our next episode we'll get into the bowl pick 'em to follow up this episode. So I think that'd be a good next topic. And uh not that we're experts on this, but we enjoy talking about it,
That's
as you can
right.
tell from our picks throughout the season
Yeah,
and our
or
knowledge.
lack thereof.
Yeah, knowledge or lack of knowledge. But
Yeah.
yeah, but well, cool. Love to hear your comments. Tell us whether we're right or wrong, how you feel on some of this stuff. Hit the subscribe button, hit the
If
like,
I tell you what,
tell
if
Nate what.
you whoever is our very first comment on a video will be our next guest. We will
There you go.
personally ask you because we don't have any endorsements, we don't have any advertising money
Nope.
coming in, so we don't have anything to give you other than the pleasure of joining us for a podcast.
That's right. That's right. You never know what it may lead to, too. So,
That's right.
all right. Thanks, everybody.
Hit that subscribe button.
That's right.